There's a moment, quiet, almost imperceptible, when something inside you whispers, "This isn't who I really am." You might feel it while staring at your reflection in the mirror, your smile a little too practiced, your eyes a little too distant. Or maybe it strikes during success, in a moment that should feel triumphant but somehow feels empty instead. It's as if you've spent your entire life climbing a ladder, only to realize it's been leaning against the wrong wall. This subtle ache, this silent dissonance between who you appear to be and who you truly are, is not a flaw. It's a signal, a sacred invitation. And Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychological thinkers of the 20th century, called this the beginning of individuation, the journey of becoming your true self. Not the self that was shaped by expectation or fear, but the self that was always there, buried beneath layers of survival, silence, and shame. Most of us never get to meet that true self. Not really. We wear masks so convincingly that we forget they were ever masks at all. We identify with our roles, student, worker, partner, achiever, believing that if we just succeed at being what the world expects, we'll finally feel whole. But the soul doesn't work that way. It doesn't care how polished your image is or how well you fit in. The soul is ancient, untamed, and brutally honest. And when you abandon it long enough, it doesn't just go silent. It revolts. The ID signs are everywhere. The anxiety that won't go away, the depression that numbs everything, the relationships that keep falling apart, or the unshakable sense that you're living someone else's life. These aren't problems to be solved. They're messages to be listened to, messages that say, "You've gone too far from home." Jung didn't believe in fixing people. He believed in wholeness. He believed that our suffering is not meaningless, but, rather, a map. Each wound we carry, each piece of ourselves we've exiled holds a clue to who we really are. But most of us never follow that map. We stay busy, we stay distracted, we stay safe. Because individuation is not a gentle path. It's a descent. It asks you to confront what you've repressed, to question what you've inherited, and to dissolve everything false in you. It's not about becoming better, it's about becoming authentic, and that authenticity demands sacrifice. You'll lose your comfort, you'll lose your certainty, but what you gain is beyond price, a life that finally feels like it belongs to you. This video is not just an exploration of Carl Jung's ideas, it's an invitation, an initiation. Over the next 10 chapters, we'll walk through the most powerful stages of individuation, from confronting your false self to meeting your hidden shadow, from decoding the symbols in your dreams to reclaiming your buried soul. We'll explore why pain repeats, why identity crumbles, and why true transformation is always preceded by loss. But we'll also discover something else, something luminous, that underneath all your masks you are already whole. You're not here to become someone else. You're here to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. So if you've ever felt like a stranger in your own life or wondered if there's something more, this journey is for you. Let's begin. From a young age, you were taught how to be, not who you are. Be good. Be strong. Don't cry. Make us proud. These phrases seem innocent, even loving, but over time they become bricks in the wall that separates you from your authentic self. Most people don't realize it, but the person they call me is often just a collage, fragments stitched together from approval, survival, and fear. Who you are at the office, with your parents, with your friends. These roles are often performances, rehearsed in the theater of social expectation. And the real tragedy? You've been playing the part so long, you've forgotten it's just a role. When you start to feel lost, disconnected, or like your life doesn't fit anymore, it's not because you're broken. It's because the mask is cracking, and something deeper is trying to break through. Carl Jung saw this identity crisis not as a psychological failure, but as the beginning of a transformation. He believed the modern world pushes people toward conformity, rewarding those who adapt and punishing those who deviate. But this adaptation comes at a soul-deep cost. The price is authenticity. You trade your inner voice for outer validation. You stop asking, "What do I want?" and start asking, "What should I do?" Over time, you become a stranger to yourself. You look in the mirror and see someone who is functioning, even successful, but numb, tired, hollow. This is not just disconnection, it's soul amnesia. And society encourages this forgetfulness. It tells you that self-worth comes from achievement, from appearance, from being liked. But the more you chase those things, the more distant your true self becomes, watching quietly from the shadows, waiting for you to come home. This inner crisis doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it comes disguised as boredom. You have everything you thought you wanted, but feel nothing. Other times it shows up as anxiety, depression, or a strange emptiness you can't explain. You may even become hyperproductive, constantly chasing goals because stillness feels unbearable. But underneath the chaos is the same question: who am I, really? And that question terrifies people, because to answer it, you have to strip away every identity that was given to you. You have to confront the uncomfortable truth that the life you built may not be yours at all. It may just be the one that kept you safe. But safety isn't the same as wholeness. Jung knew that until we face this existential tension, we will remain fragmented, functioning on the surface but spiritually starved underneath. The crisis of identity is not the end, it's the beginning. It's the soul's rebellion against a life lived in falsehood. And though it feels disorienting, this inner collapse is sacred. Because only when the false self falls apart can the real self begin to emerge. Individuation, in Jungian psychology, starts here, in the rubble. Not with answers, but with questions, with doubts, with a deep yearning that refuses to be silenced. It is not a linear path. There will be fear, grief, and resistance. But there will also be flashes of truth, moments when something ancient inside you stirs and says, yes, this is me. And once you touch that part of yourself, even for a moment, you can't go back. Because now you know that beneath the roles, beneath the masks, beneath everything you've been told to be, there is someone real, and that someone is worth everything. You learned early on that honesty doesn't always earn applause. When you showed too much emotion, you were told to calm down. When you showed too much truth, you were told to hold back. So you adapted. You shaped yourself into something more palatable, more acceptable. Jung called this adaptation the persona, a kind of social mask we wear to function in the world. It's not inherently bad. In fact, it helps you survive, especially in environments where being fully yourself is unsafe. But problems arise when the mask becomes permanent. You begin to forget that it's a mask at all. You smile when you want to cry. You stay quiet when your soul is screaming. And over time, you become a polished version of yourself edited for public consumption. But the raw, wild, unfiltered you, the real you, remains buried beneath layers of what you think you should be. The persona is built out of fear. Fear of rejection, fear of vulnerability, fear of being truly seen. But here's the paradox. The more you hide, the more you feel unknown. You walk through life feeling invisible, not because people don't notice you, but because they only see your performance. They applaud the version of you that fits their expectations, while the version that craves freedom dies a little more each day. Carl Jung warned that when the persona takes over, you begin to lose your soul. You trade depth for likability. You mistake fitting in for belonging. And eventually you wake up to a life that feels like someone else's. You're surrounded by people, yet profoundly alone. You're successful, yet deeply dissatisfied. Because the mask, no matter how perfect, can't breathe life into your spirit. Only truth can do that. Many people mistake the persona for their identity. They think, this is just who I am. But what they're actually describing is who they've become to survive. There's a huge difference. The persona is a costume stitched from childhood wounds, cultural norms, and survival instincts. It's the version of you that got praised, accepted, and validated. But underneath that costume is something wild and untamed. The self that laughs too loud, loves too deeply, or says the wrong thing at the wrong time. That self has been locked away, exiled for being too much or not enough. But it's still there, watching from the margins of your life, waiting for permission to return. And that moment, the return of the authentic self, is the beginning of individuation. It's messy, raw, and terrifying, but it's also liberating beyond anything the mask could ever offer. Letting go of the persona doesn't mean abandoning all social graces or becoming reckless. It means aligning your outer life with your inner truth. It means no longer shrinking to make others comfortable, or pretending to be someone you're not just to avoid conflict. It means telling the truth, even when your voice shakes. It means living in a way that honors your soul, not just your image. Jung believed that true healing begins when we see the persona for what it is, a tool, not a home. And the journey of individuation requires us to gently, courageously remove the mask and face the rawness beneath. Not to shame it, but to reclaim it. Because the person you were before the world told you who to be is still there. And once you reconnect with that self, you'll never want to wear the mask again. Not because it was evil, but because now, you remember what freedom feels like. There are parts of you you pretend don't exist. Anger, jealousy, lust, rage, the desire to hurt, to dominate, to scream when everyone expects you to smile. These are not foreign invaders in your psyche. They are parts of you. And yet you've buried them deep, locking them away in the dark basement of your consciousness, convinced that being good means never feeling them. Jung called this buried collection of instincts, emotions, and impulses the shadow. It is made of everything you've been taught not to be, everything that made others uncomfortable, everything you denied in order to survive. But the shadow doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. In fact, the more you repress it, the stronger it becomes. It leaks out in passive-aggressive comments and irrational outbursts in the secret lives you lead when no one is watching. The shadow isn't evil, it's wounded, and it's waiting to be seen. We've been taught to fear the shadow. We think that facing it will unravel us. But what if the opposite is true? What if ignoring it is what keeps us fragmented? Every time you suppress a part of yourself, you lose access to your full energy. You become divided, disconnected from your own vitality. The shadow contains not only the dark emotions but also the raw power of your humanity. Your creativity, passion, assertiveness, and instinctive intelligence often live there too, exiled with the parts that were deemed unacceptable. So when you shut the door on your shadow, you don't just lose the parts that scare you, you lose your fire. You lose your voice, you become tame and inauthentic, and eventually life begins to feel dull and colorless. You wonder why you're numb, why you lack motivation, why you feel so far from yourself. The answer is in the darkness you avoid. Facing the shadow is not about indulging it, it's about understanding it. When you meet your inner darkness with curiosity instead of judgment, something miraculous happens. It begins to integrate. You start to recognize that your anger had something important to say, that your envy pointed to buried desire, that your fear wasn't weakness, but a wounded longing for safety. In this process, you reclaim the parts of you that were never truly bad, just misunderstood. This is the beginning of psychological wholeness. You stop outsourcing blame. You stop projecting your pain onto others. You begin to take radical responsibility for your emotional landscape. And that's the moment you start becoming powerful, in a new way. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. The more of yourself you reclaim, the more solid and grounded you become. Not flawless, human. Jung warned that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Most people are trapped in this pattern. They repeat the same relationships, the same mistakes, the same emotional spirals, because they refuse to face their inner world. The shadow is not your enemy. It is the key to your freedom. But freedom requires truth. And truth requires courage. If you want to stop being a slave to your triggers, if you want to stop lashing out or shutting down or sabotaging the things you love, you must make the descent. You must go into the places you've avoided, not to punish yourself, but to liberate yourself. Because on the other side of that confrontation is clarity. On the other side is energy. On the other side is you. unfiltered, undivided, and awake. Integration isn't the end of the journey, but it is the beginning of finally coming home to yourself. You can silence your soul for years, even decades, but it never truly goes quiet. Beneath your carefully structured life, beneath the persona you've built, the soul is always calling. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it screams, but it never gives up. Jung believed the soul isn't just some poetic abstraction. It is the vital core of who you are. It's the blueprint of your authenticity, the inner compass guiding you toward wholeness. And when you ignore it, when you betray it in favor of safety, approval, or status, the consequences are not just emotional, they're existential. You begin to drift. You feel off, restless, as though something vital is missing. You might try to fill the void with consumption, with workaholism, with control, but nothing fits. Because the hole in your life isn't about what's missing outside. It's about what's been abandoned inside. Your soul doesn't need fixing. It needs listening. Ignoring the soul's call isn't just a personal issue. It's a cultural epidemic. We live in a world that rewards conformity and punishes authenticity. From childhood, we're trained to be what others need us to be. Be polite, be efficient, be agreeable. We adapt, we shape-shift. We become excellent at being someone else, but the cost is steep. As we over-identify with the roles we play, we lose touch with who we really are. The soul's call often comes in moments of crisis, when the old mask no longer fits, when the job that once thrilled you leaves you empty, when the relationship you worked so hard to preserve starts to feel like a cage. And yet, instead of seeing these moments as invitations to reconnect, most of us double down. We try harder to make the old life work, but the soul doesn't want you to survive. It wants you to live. And living requires honesty. When the soul is ignored for too long, it doesn't disappear. It disrupts. You may experience anxiety that seems to come from nowhere, depression with no clear cause, or a deep sense of meaninglessness that no external success can fix. These are not signs that you're broken, they're messages from within, symptoms of soul neglect. In Jungian terms, this is the moment of existential tension, a painful but necessary prelude to awakening. The psyche begins to rebel. What once satisfied you starts to feel hollow. You become allergic to your own inauthenticity. And yet, this is where many people panic. They medicate, they numb, they run. But the discomfort isn't the problem. It's the doorway. Your soul isn't punishing you. It's inviting you to return, to feel, to remember, to stop performing and start participating in your own life again. But that path is rarely linear. It's a descent before it becomes a rise. Answering the call of the soul is one of the bravest things you can do. It often means leaving the known, confronting your fears, and walking away from the scripts you've been handed. It means admitting you've outgrown versions of yourself that once kept you safe. It means grieving the life you built on someone else's definition of success. But beyond that, grief is liberation. The soul doesn't care how impressive your resume is. It doesn't care how many followers you have or how perfectly you perform. It wants something deeper: wholeness, aliveness, presence. And when you start living from that place, something shifts. Your energy changes. Your relationships deepen. You begin to attract what aligns and lose what doesn't. This is not magic. It's not luck. It's the natural result of no longer betraying yourself. The soul's call is not a one-time event, it's a daily dialogue. The question is, are you listening? Every night the unconscious speaks. But it doesn't use logic or grammar. It speaks in images, metaphors, and feelings, fragments of a deeper reality that your waking mind often cannot grasp. Carl Jung believed that dreams are not random firings of the brain, but profound communications from the unconscious, expressions of the soul itself. These are not mere stories. They are messages tailored uniquely to you. A snake slithering through your house, a child lost in a crowd, a crumbling bridge. These aren't meaningless, they are symbolic and they're alive. Your dream world is an ecosystem of your psyche. To ignore it is to ignore the very part of you that holds the key to healing, direction, and wholeness. But most people dismiss their dreams as nonsense, failing to realize that the unconscious has no other way to reach them. When you silence this language, you cut yourself off from your most intimate source of wisdom. In dreams, the soul bypasses the ego's defenses. It shows us what we're not willing to see in daylight. You may dream of someone dying, not to predict an actual death, but to symbolize a part of yourself that's being shed. You may find yourself back in your childhood home, not by accident, but because there's an unresolved emotional knot still waiting to be unraveled. Jung taught that symbols are the key, not to be taken literally, but to be interpreted with care. A lion may not be a lion. It may represent your inner courage, long buried under compliance. A staircase may represent a descent into your shadow, or a rise into a new level of consciousness. The meaning isn't in the object, it's in your emotional reaction to it. Your fear, your fascination, your confusion, that's where the message lives. Dreams don't speak in facts. They speak in truths that logic can't contain. The modern world teaches us to worship the rational, what we can measure, what we can prove. But this obsession has a cost. It leaves us spiritually malnourished. Because the most meaningful things in life, love, loss, desire, purpose, cannot be fully explained. They must be felt. And dreams are the bridge to that realm of feeling. They are your psyche's poetry. When Jung analyzed dreams, he wasn't looking for answers. He was listening for patterns, recurring figures, repeated themes, strange settings. These aren't mistakes. They are parts of you knocking, again and again, waiting to be acknowledged. When a figure chases you in a dream, it may not be an enemy. It may be your own power, your own truth, demanding that you stop running. But instead of turning to face it, most of us try to forget. We wake up, brush it off, and continue the performance of waking life, deaf to the soul's midnight cries. To engage with your dreams is to enter into dialogue with your unconscious. You don't need to be a psychologist to start. You just need curiosity and humility. Keep a dream journal. Sit with the images. Ask what part of you they represent. Let them speak before dismissing them. Jung would often say that the soul guides us through dreams when all other forms of communication have failed. That's why some dreams haunt you. They come back night after night. They carry a charge because they hold something vital, something unresolved. They are not punishments, they are invitations. And once you start listening, you'll find that your inner world is rich with meaning. Your soul has been trying to reach you. Not through lectures, but through symbols, through mystery, through archetypes that transcend time and culture. The unconscious never gives up on you. The only question is whether you'll learn its language or continue living in translation. There are moments in life that defy logic. You think of someone you haven't seen in years, and they call you. A song plays on the radio that echoes your inner turmoil perfectly. You're at a crossroads and suddenly a line in a book answers the question you hadn't voiced aloud. Coincidence? Carl Jung didn't think so. He called it synchronicity, a meaningful connection between inner and outer events that cannot be explained by cause and effect. It's not magic, it's not superstition. It's the unconscious mind reaching outward, mirroring your inner world in external signs. These moments are not interruptions. They're confirmations, clues, markers, along the path of individuation. They appear when the inner and outer worlds begin to harmonize, when your psyche and the world start dancing in rhythm, not by force, but by deep alignment. And the more awake you become to your own unconscious, the more frequent these moments appear. Synchronicity is not something you can manufacture. It's not a technique or a hack. It emerges when you're in a state of inner openness, when you're aligned with your truth, even if you don't fully understand it yet. Jung experienced this firsthand during dream analysis. He would describe patients having dreams about ancient symbols they had no conscious knowledge of, then encountering the same symbols in waking life. One woman dreamed of a scarab beetle, a symbol of transformation in Egyptian mythology. The next day, a beetle flew into the room during therapy. Jung didn't call this chance. He called it evidence, that when we touch deeper layers of the psyche, the world responds. Not because we control it, but because we're no longer separated from it. When you walk toward your true self, the universe starts whispering back. But you must be quiet enough to hear it. Most people drown these whispers in noise. Synchronicity often shows up at turning points, moments of crisis, loss, or awakening. When the ego is cracked open, when the usual patterns no longer work, we become more permeable to meaning. A chance encounter becomes a message. A repeated number becomes a question. The world begins to feel less mechanical and more mythic. Jung believed that we live in both a personal and a collective story, and that synchronicity is the thread that links them. In a rational world, we dismiss these experiences as random, but to the psyche they are sacred. They are how your soul speaks not only through dreams, but through reality itself. When the timing is too precise to ignore, when the message resonates in your bones, don't rush past it. Pause, reflect, ask, what part of me is being called forward right now? What truth have I been avoiding that this moment is trying to surface? Recognizing synchronicity requires a different kind of attention, not logical but intuitive. You must learn to feel the shape of a moment, to sense the pulse beneath its surface. And when it arrives, you must respond, not with superstition, but with reverence. This is not about believing that the universe is a vending machine for your desires. It's about understanding that you are not separate from it. The inner and the outer are mirrors. When you are fragmented inside, the world appears chaotic. But when you begin the process of integration, the world starts to reflect that harmony. You begin to see patterns, meaning connection, because you are finally living from a deeper center. Synchronicity does not guarantee ease, but it does offer guidance. It shows you that you are not lost, that the soul is tracking you, sending signs reminding you that even in your confusion, something greater is unfolding, if only you have the courage to trust it. In Jungian psychology, anima and animus represent the unconscious feminine and masculine aspects of the psyche, respectively. These inner archetypes are often misunderstood or ignored in our modern world. We live in a time when gender roles are sharply defined, yet the true nature of the anima and animus goes far beyond physical sex. The anima is the feminine principle within every man, and the animus is the masculine principle within every woman. They are not simply the opposite sex. They are the soul's deepest aspects, the mirror of our internal harmony, or lack thereof. If you are a man, your anima is the hidden feminine force that influences your emotions, relationships, and dreams. If you are a woman, your animus is the masculine energy that drives your will, ambition, and inner authority. These energies shape how we relate to others and how we relate to ourselves. But when they are repressed or neglected, they wreak havoc in our lives, manifesting as internal conflict, projections, and a disconnection from our true nature. A man who suppresses his anima might find himself disconnected from his emotions, struggling with empathy or unable to connect deeply with others. His relationships may become superficial, his emotional life shallow. He might be driven by the need for external validation, avoiding vulnerability at all costs. On the other hand, a woman who ignores her animus may find herself overly passive, lacking direction, or struggling to assert herself in the world. She may rely too heavily on others' opinions, doubting her own intuition, and avoiding conflict at all costs. Both of these archetypes exist in the shadow for those who fail to integrate them, hidden, waiting to assert themselves in unhealthy ways. When the anima or animus is neglected, they manifest as projections onto others. A man might idealize women, placing them on a pedestal, only to feel betrayed when they don't live up to his fantasies. A woman might find herself repeatedly falling for men who embody a distorted, exaggerated version of masculinity, one that is rigid and domineering. The failure to meet these energies within ourselves causes us to search for them externally, often in the wrong places. To truly reconnect with your anima or animus, you must be willing to engage with the unconscious. You must be brave enough to look within and confront the parts of you that have been left behind. For men, this often means embracing their vulnerability, acknowledging the emotional and creative aspects of their nature. For women, it involves reclaiming their inner strength, asserting their voice, and recognizing the masculine power that exists within them. Jung spoke about the necessity of integrating these parts of ourselves to achieve psychological wholeness. This is the process of individuation, the journey toward becoming a fully realized person. The anima and animus act as bridges between the conscious and unconscious mind. When you engage with these archetypes, you're not just addressing your personal issues, you're engaging with universal energies that shape the course of human development. By embodying both the masculine and feminine principles within, you cultivate a deeper connection to your true self, balancing strength with compassion, action with reflection. The integration of the anima and animus is not a linear process, it's cyclical. You may encounter these energies throughout your life in various forms, and each encounter will challenge you to go deeper. At first, it may seem like a daunting task, but as you engage with these aspects of yourself, you begin to unlock hidden potentials. Your relationships will improve as you stop projecting your unmet needs onto others and start meeting them within yourself. You'll find a new sense of balance between doing and being, between thinking and feeling, between the outward world and the inner world. Jung believed that the more we integrate the anima and animus, the more we can live authentically, in full alignment with who we are. The power of these archetypes lies in their ability to guide us towards self-knowledge and self-acceptance. By embracing both our masculine and feminine energies, we can cultivate the strength and wisdom needed to live a life of wholeness and integrity. This balance is the key to transcending the limitations of gender roles and societal expectations. It's about becoming the full, authentic expression of yourself, integrating the parts of you that have been disowned and forgotten. At the core of Carl Jung's theory of individuation lies the concept of the self, the totality of the conscious and unconscious parts of the psyche. The self is not a static concept, nor is it defined by the roles society assigns to us. It is the essence of who we truly are, the center of our being that transcends our individual personality, social identity, and even our personal history. Jung proposed that the self is our most authentic state, an integrated, balanced identity that arises when we bring all parts of ourselves into harmony. Yet so many of us live disconnected from this center. Instead, we define ourselves by external labels, our job, our relationships, our possessions. But none of these things reflect the true self. The self is a deeper, more profound identity that exists beyond the surface of our everyday lives. It is the total expression of our being, encompassing both light and dark aspects of who we are, the conscious and the unconscious. The journey to encounter the self is not easy. It requires us to venture into the deepest recesses of our unconscious mind, confronting the shadows, the painful memories, and the parts of us that we have repressed or rejected. The self cannot be found by avoiding our inner conflicts or bypassing the parts of ourselves that we find uncomfortable. It is a journey that demands courage to face the truth about who we are, not who we think we should be. The self is not a place you arrive at once and for all. Rather, it is a dynamic process of becoming. It evolves over time as we grow and integrate new aspects of our psyche. When we confront our fears, our insecurities, and our unhealed wounds, we move closer to the self. But when we avoid or repress these aspects, we create a disconnection, a fragmentation within our being. The self is the unification of all these parts, our light and our dark, our strengths and our vulnerabilities. This process of becoming the self is intimately tied to the concept of wholeness. Jung believed that each person has the potential for individuation, the journey toward integrating all aspects of themselves. The self is the culmination of this journey, but it requires us to break down the false barriers we've built around our identity. It means letting go of the limiting beliefs, fears, and roles that we have adopted in response to societal expectations. It's about shedding the masks we've worn in order to survive and stepping into our true nature, unfiltered and unashamed. This process of integration allows us to move from fragmentation to wholeness, from disconnection to unity. It's through this integration of the unconscious and conscious mind that the self reveals itself. like a precious gem buried deep within the soil, only to be unearthed through diligent inner work. To meet the self is to meet your true identity. It is to embrace both the person you are and the person you have yet to become. It's to acknowledge the parts of you that have been hidden, the desires that have been suppressed, and the gifts that have been neglected. The self is not about becoming someone else, but about fully embracing the essence of who you already are. This requires self-acceptance, compassion, and a willingness to be vulnerable. The self is a journey, not a destination, and it is through this ongoing journey that we can live a life that is aligned with our deepest truths. When you meet the self, you experience a profound shift. The struggle to be someone you are not fades, and the burden of pretending to fit into societal molds lightens. You become more at peace with yourself, and in turn, your relationships, your work, and your life as a whole begin to reflect the harmony within. The self is not just the center of our identity, but the source of our power, creativity, and purpose. Individuation is not a journey for the faint of heart. It is an arduous process that requires us to confront uncomfortable, truth-sheet-old identities and break free from the confines of who we've been told to be. The transformation that occurs during individuation is intense, and often it is painful. Carl Jung understood that growth is rarely easy. It requires us to face our fears, our shame, and our deepest wounds. As we strive to become whole, we may experience deep emotional turmoil, confusion, and even despair. This pain is not a sign that something is wrong with us. Rather, it is a sign that we are doing the inner work necessary to transform our psyche. Individuation demands that we shed the familiar, even if that familiarity brings us comfort. The Mao process requires us to let go of the past, to face the shadows we have kept hidden, and to embrace the unknown aspects of ourselves. The pain of individuation is rooted in the conflict between our conscious mind and the unconscious forces that drive us. For much of our lives, we have been guided by societal norms, familial expectations, and our own ego's need for approval and success. These external forces shape the identity we project to the world, but they do not align with our truest, most authentic self. Individuation forces us to confront the tension between the mask we wear and the truth that lies beneath. As we begin to let go of these external identities, we may experience a sense of loss, as if we are losing ourselves. But in reality, we are merely shedding the layers that no longer serve us. This is a necessary part of the process, and though it may feel like we are falling apart, we are actually being reconstructed in a more authentic form. The emotional pain that accompanies individuation often stems from the parts of ourselves that we have repressed or denied. These parts, which Jung refers to as the shadow, are aspects of our personality that we have either rejected or buried due to fear, shame, or societal conditioning. As we work through the process of individuation, these hidden parts of ourselves begin to surface, and we are faced with the uncomfortable reality of what we've avoided. The shadow is not inherently negative. It contains both destructive tendencies and unrealized potential. But meeting the shadow, accepting its existence and integrating it into our conscious awareness, requires us to face uncomfortable emotions and confront the aspects of ourselves that we have spent a lifetime trying to ignore. This is why individuation often hurts. It demands that we face our internal contradictions, making peace with the parts of ourselves that we find difficult to accept. Despite the pain, individuation is ultimately a path toward freedom. The discomfort that we experience is not a sign of failure, but a sign of growth. As we face the pain, we shed the layers of falsehoods and step into a more authentic version of ourselves. Individuation allows us to reclaim our power, our creativity, and our sense of purpose. It is through this painful process that we are able to experience true transformation, moving from a life dictated by external expectations to one that is guided by our inner truth. The pain of individuation is the pain of breaking free from the chains of conformity, of embracing the unknown, and of stepping into our fullest potential. It is the price of true freedom, and while it may be difficult, the rewards are immeasurable. Through this process, we become more fully ourselves, more deeply connected to our own essence and more capable of living a life that is aligned with our truest nature. To live individuated is to finally embrace your true self, to live in alignment with the deepest essence of who you are. This journey of individuation is not just about understanding yourself, it is about becoming yourself. It's about the courage to let go of external validation, societal pressures, and the masks we wear to fit in. Living individuated means shedding the roles we have been forced into and stepping into our unique authenticity. It is the freedom to express our thoughts, emotions, and desires without fear of judgment or rejection. When we live in this state of individuation, we no longer feel the need to conform to the expectations of others. Instead, we move through the world with an unwavering sense of self, grounded in our truth, embracing our strengths, flaws, and contradictions alike. Living individuated is a radical act of self-acceptance. It's about embracing the parts of ourselves that have been ignored, suppressed, or judged by others. One of the core components of individuation is integrating our shadow, those hidden aspects of our personality that we've been too afraid to confront. When we live individuated, we are no longer divided between who we show the world and who we are in private. We accept ourselves fully, knowing that our imperfections and contradictions are just as much a part of our authentic self as our strengths. This integration brings a deep sense of inner peace, as we no longer feel torn between our desires and the image we feel we need to project. By accepting all parts of ourselves, we become whole, and in this wholeness, we find freedom. Being individuated also means embracing our creativity and living in alignment with our inner purpose. When we are true to ourselves, we tap into a deeper source of energy and inspiration. We no longer feel drained by the pressures to be something we are not. Instead, we draw strength from our inner truth, and this allows us to create, express, and connect with others in a more meaningful way. Living individuated is about recognizing that our unique perspective and gifts are valuable and that we have something important to offer the world. It is an expression of our most authentic self, unhindered by the need for approval or acceptance. It allows us to embrace the natural flow of life, trusting in our ability to navigate challenges, knowing that we are aligned with our deepest sense of purpose. Finally, to live individuated is to experience a profound connection to the collective human experience. Although individuation is a deeply personal journey, it opens us up to the universal human condition. When we embrace our authentic selves, we develop empathy and compassion for others who are on their own journeys of self-discovery. We no longer see others as threats to our sense of identity, but as reflections of the same human struggle to understand who we truly are. In this way, individuation fosters a deeper sense of connection to others and the world around us. It allows us to contribute to society not from a place of fear or obligation, but from a place of love and authenticity. Living individuated means living from a place of deep inner truth, and when we live from this space, we create a ripple effect that can inspire others to do the same. The world becomes a more compassionate, authentic place when we dare to be our true selves. As we conclude this deep dive into the process of individuation, it's important to reflect on the transformative power of embracing our true selves. Individuation is not a destination. It is an ongoing journey of becoming. It is the conscious effort to integrate the disparate parts of ourselves into a unified whole, to no longer live in the shadow of who we think we should be, but to step into the light of who we truly are. It is about releasing the weight of societal expectations, overcoming the masks we wear, and embracing the beauty of our authentic, imperfect selves. In the pursuit of individuation, we are not only freed from the constraints that once held us back, we unlock the vast potential that resides within. The deeper we go into this process, the more we connect with our true essence and the more we align with our deepest purpose in life. Through individuation, we awaken to the richness of our experiences, the depth of our emotions, and the boundless creativity that lies dormant within. But the journey is not without its challenges. Transformation is never easy, and the path to self-realization requires courage, patience, and a willingness to confront our deepest fears and wounds. It is a call to face the parts of ourselves that we have neglected or rejected, to turn inward, and to integrate the fragmented pieces of our psyche. However, as Carl Jung teaches us, only through this process of integration can we experience the fullness of life. Individuation is a journey toward true freedom, a freedom not bound by the expectations of others or by the limitations of our past, but a freedom that arises from the deep knowing of who we are and the courageous choice to live authentically. When we embrace this journey, we step into the fullness of our potential, and in doing so, we contribute to a world that is more authentic, compassionate, and whole. So remember, you are not defined by the roles you play or the masks you wear. You are not the sum of your past mistakes or the expectations of others. You are the unique, ever-evolving expression of your deepest self. Embrace the process of individuation and discover the power that lies within you.